Gary, when we talk about this time of year, teams are just trying to figure their team dynamic out. A lot of decisions to be made in these early races of how many of your star racers you're going to run versus how many of your teams, as you're looking for those maybe number 3, 4, and 5 members of what you hope will be championship teams by the end of the season. But we brought together a nice group of men's teams for this first race of the day.
Yeah, we have 4 returning in the top 10. And, I think that's really important to mention, too, when you have experience on a course like this. This isn't a regular golf course. It's a very, very hilly, and there's ups and downs. But I think this is really where you can see the strength that you're building in your training. And yeah, coaches are going to be looking to see where their athletes finish, how gritty they can be on a tough course. And it's a big day for them. The athletes definitely want to shine today.
66 degrees on its way up into the upper 70s. So still feeling like it's summer season here, but Gary, what do these conditions do for the athletes as it gets warmer throughout the day?
I think they were definitely happy to see that we were in the low 60s when the sun came up this morning, but it has been hot and it also has been humid. 68% humidity might not sound like a lot, but as this day goes on, it's going to get hot for the athletes, especially the younger ones that are in the afternoon. These collegiate athletes know what it's like to deal with all of the different elements, but it's going to be a tough day by the time that sun is fully shining and ready to go.
And Ben, as we get these folks out onto the race course, we showed a little bit in the course map and in Keenan's report. This is a challenging course. Every step you take is not going to be like the step you just took, right?
Correct. This is a tough course because it doesn't resemble that many other courses that you'll see throughout the season. You come out here, it's still early season, and I think the big question is who did the best training over the summer? Who was kind of on top of it? And I think those athletes usually tend to shine.
And as a former University of Minnesota runner, what did it mean to be able to host this event and have this event kind of be your big home meet?
Yeah, I think the two questions about it is, one, it was always a big thing for us, right? It's our home course. We want to go out and run really well, but it's also early. It was also early for me. You come off a track season that didn't end that long ago, and then you're expected to turn around and run a good 8K on a really challenging course. And it's always a little bit of a mixed bag for me personally of like, do I want to come out and run really well at Roy Griak, or do I want to run really well 2 months from now in November?
As they have the 1 minute to race time, Perry, those reflections too of, a lot of these teams putting their top athletes into really tough training blocks in the early going to prepare for those big events that are coming up, pre-nats later on in October, and then obviously the big prize, which is a chance to race at the NCAA championships. So sometimes you're maybe not coming in as one of the best athletes on your team feeling all that in race shape because you've been running and training a lot in these early weeks.
Yeah, and I think this might be one of those little reprieves for some of those athletes that have really been working hard. They could maybe taper down in the last couple days here, freshen up quick, and get out and race. And, sometimes when that gun goes off, it just feels so good because, you're ready to go and show your work.
Very nice segue, Carrie Tollefson, as the official is out there ready to fire that gun, and we are ready for racing on a spectacular day in Minnesota. The 38th edition of the Roy Griak Invitational is underway with the spectacular view from high above as this group of Division I men's programs get themselves out onto the race course over 8 kilometers and that controlled chaos, Ben. What is it like to be in that?
It's super fun. As we can tell, already a couple athletes went down. I think, like you said earlier, this is the first experience on a big stage for some of these. It's the first real big race of the season, and it's kind of finding your footing.
And again, the men will have 8 kilometers to traverse here, and you'll get a good sense of it from our lead camera of just how much undulation they're going to see out on this course. And as they kind of settle into this early rhythm here, we'll go through some of the entries team by team. We'll have updated standings in progress for you on those live results after the first kilometer is complete, then at 3K, another one at 5K, and then all the way to the finish. And that's one of the beauties here, Carrie, about cross country and why these live results add so much to the broadcast is it's not just about who we're following on this lead vehicle. It's about your number 4, number 5 runner that could be the difference of winning Griak as a team or not.
Oh, I love that about cross country. I mean, just knowing that you want to see your people, you want to see the same uniform that you're in. I tell that to all of the athletes that I ever talk to or give advice or coach. In cross country, you want to see your peeps. You want to be in that pack. And we've seen in some of these great openers already that there has been a number of the athletes and teams that have come here to Griak that have a real small spread. You know, they can see each other, and even though there might be some dual meets and things like that where you don't get a lot of bodies to mix it up, that's the whole point in these early races. Be tight, be up front, you know, and hopefully win. But Paul, this is one of my favorite races because when you're out there watching and spectating, you can get to a lot of places. And Ben, you know this better than anybody, but we get a lot of people here in Minnesota to come out and watch these early races that used to be a 2-day meet. Now it's a 1-day meet. But whether it's high school, collegiate, even when they had the open races, it got loud out there. This is a really fun race for these athletes to come. They can hear their teammates that maybe aren't racing, their coaches, but also so many spectators are just excited to see this big meet take off.
And that's really been the addition of the high school divisions too. This entire day, really kind of a celebration of the sport in Minnesota. And so some of those younger athletes with their parents here to see some of these collegians race as well.
Yeah. When you're having a great day, it's meaningful to have a lot of people out there. When you're having a bad day and you see the same faces over and over, it could be a tough one. But I think today is really an opportunity to take a chance. It's an opportunity to see what you have today, and it's early, so it's not that meaningful in the sense of like, hey, I ran really good 6K and I blew up a little bit, or hey, I pulled it off. And I'd love to see some athletes take a big chance today.
I love that you say that. Take a chance. I mean, so many times in these early meets, you have coaches that say, go for it, just try it. Why not? Like, maybe the next time you'll get a little further and you'll be able to hang on to your teammates a little further. I just love that. I don't think we remind ourselves enough to go for it in races. We have to do that. See what you're made of early on.
So a little bit over a kilometer into this race here as we look at some of the individuals that are running unattached for the competition today. But the group here, while spread out nicely over the course of about 100, 150 meters here, still everyone in contact among those leaders as they get themselves into the second part of the race.
Well, this is where they're starting to kind of just think about what their race plan is. They're out. They are established now. They're on their feet, and they're getting going here. But interesting to see that Marshall Loveland is up front pushing. And, I often wondered where my teammates were. He's way up there. He's got his teammate on his shoulder there. But, just wondering, like, what's going on behind me? You got to try to not think and just run when you're in cross country.
So they came through the first mile in 4:48. And Hunter Klimak of North Dakota State among the leaders. Victor Neva of North Texas and Murphy Smith of Navy. But as we start to show some of these real-time updated stats, and you can see the lead group of men there all within about a second of each other, settling in. And, you keep an eye here, Ben, of that race for the team title. And, Wyoming coming through there in 5th, 7th, 8th, 10th, and 13th with their top 5. And that's where running as a group can sometimes pay off.
Yeah, cross country is all about finding your teammates, pushing each other, but staying together. You got to have good teamwork. The good thing about cross country is it's at a pace where you should be able to speak a few words. At this level where we're 6 minutes in, you should still be able to communicate to your team. You should be able to talk to your guys and be able to kind of like hold that mentality all the way through.
Down below those stats in the bottom left corner of your screen, our athletic course tracker shows you where they are out on the course here. Definitely using the edges of these golf course real estate here in Minnesota. The Roy Griak Invitational. This is the Division I men's gold race covering 8 kilometers, and 7:09 on that split clock for them as they take themselves around this spot on the course that they'll see a second time as they're working their way now towards the 3 kilometer mark. That'll be the next point at which we'll get updated individual standings and an updated team score. But for right now, Carrie, it's we see this all the time. We'll have 10 races today, and each one is its own storytell, and we'll see some races where everyone stays together, and we'll have other races where somebody makes a bold move and breaks away. But right now, everyone just kind of settling into a group run rhythm here on the men's side.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that I saw Hunter Klimek just take a big look back, and I think he was double checking. I thought that was his teammate in the dark there earlier on, and it wasn't. But coming in, we thought that Wyoming would be the team to beat. They looked really good in their opener, and it was neat because Mason Norman and Jacob White were the two that led Wyoming in that opener. But now when we're looking at the results here, there's all sorts of different names of these teammates that are in this lead pack, and that's what's so fun about these early stages. No one really knows where they are on their team. Maybe in practice you see one guy or one gal kind of leading every interval or every rep. But when it comes to racing, things change. And so it's kind of fun early on to figure that out, or to just see if your team is so good that every week it's going to be interchangeable, and just this camaraderie. Like, I miss it so much. I don't know about you, Ben, but cross country, there's something about it. The smell of the grass. We used to be able to smell the gator. I don't know if they do that anymore because I think it's electric now, but oh, it's so good. And I hope these athletes just enjoy every minute of it because it goes by quick.
Definitely goes by quick, and I think cross country at a college level is that really your last opportunity to work as a team, to put in all that summer training together, and then to have this run during the fall season of trying to work together, trying to run as best as you can for your teammates. And cross country is really, it always comes down to that 4th or 5th guy. They have to run their best.
Well, this is interesting, Paul, because one of the, we see that Navy is really running well too, and it's such a big pack, but this was the team that we thought might be the sleeper team coming in here. Wyoming was the one on paper that we're going to keep our eye on here, but Navy has potential.
Yeah, Navy coming through in 4th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, so 4 of their 5 that constitute that 42-point score running basically next to each other. Carson Necker of South Dakota State, the leader through that 3 kilometer split in 9:06:05. Klimek, who was among the leaders after a mile, still settling there into second. Neva of North Texas, Smith of Navy, and Ja of Ohio State. There is the group of Navy athletes, and impressive. You can kind of see them back there behind the leaders, and for the most part just trying to treat this right now as a training run.
Yeah, still early days in this. We're 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
We're 3K. It's a long way to go still today.
But you really can see the ups and downs, even with our cameraman, going up a hill and not quite seeing our athletes because it's just where the vehicle is. I mean, there is really no flat on this course. Even if it's a little tiny stretch like this, pretty soon you're going to have a bump of an up or a down. It is a challenging course, and you said it, Ben. There's a lot of racing left, and when you don't have a little tiny flat, your legs are just always burning.
I couldn't agree more with you, Carrie. I think this course can be tough. You come on these fairways, it's nice and smooth, and then you'll come off of it, and it's rough and rugged.
It's so
Running
different
World
than
Cross, a lot of times you're on horse track races. So, so it's like really, really bumpy, and there's roots here in Minnesota on this course. I can remember going down that picture that we showed at the top of the show. I went down in that race tripping on a root, even though we had some snow here and there, but it's definitely a tough course, but fun. I mean, it just is all cross country.
Look at some of the rest of the field here as they come through at about the halfway mark of this 8K distance, with a little bit of a break now here in front. I believe that's Mohamed Guled of Utah Valley that has inserted a little bit of pace here right after that 3K split. And Ben, in the span of just 2-3 minutes now, we've seen a big change up at the front.
Yeah, eventually somebody was going to get a little tired of running in a group, and they want to kind of see what they're made out of. And no better time than just take the chance and just go for it. You're still a long ways out, but at this point, you can start smelling the finish line, and why not? I think the big question is who goes with it and who kind of blows up. I think that's the biggest question now is, does a team like Navy, who had a lot of guys packed up on the front, do they fall victim to, hey, we're gonna match this move and go, and hopefully they have the fitness, or do they match the move and fall apart? And a team like Wyoming maybe holds back a little bit and keeps their 5 guys together and comes through with the win.
So Guled still here in this leadership position as they close in on the 5-kilometer mark. And once again, you see that big sweeping downhill, and it's so different. We spent all the summer sitting in track races at 5,000, 10,000 meters, and people just eyes on the back of the person in front of them and just clicking off the laps. Here you have to really be present as a runner with every step.
It's a different rhythm. Track and cross are 2 different rhythms. If you can fall into some good splits on the track, you can get through a lot of laps without thinking. And here, you're thinking almost every step. You're thinking about, how much does this suck? How much does it hurt? How tired am I? And can I still get to the finish at this point? But the nice part is sometimes you can get into somebody else's head. You kind of build that buffer like these two are, and maybe at different points they'll be able to take a deep breath. They'll kind of find their legs a little bit, but they built in that natural buffer where maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th have says, well, I'm having a good day, and they're untouchable at this point. As you can see, they're a little bit out.
And Carrie, just like in a track race, though, as this group begins to decompress just a little bit, I look back at that sort of that large group that starts in about 4th place all the way back to probably 50th place. I mean, you have people now you can target, and if you can get yourself 1 spot ahead or 2 spots ahead, or you're running with a teammate and you guys can work together, that's where the team scoring is coming into play here.
Everybody counts, right? Like bodies, they count because it's all a point, right? So we have to make sure that we're trying to get as many as we can, try to reel those leaders in as much as you can. But in cross country, you want to be able to see where you want to finish. It's real hard to gain a lot of distance. People will come back, but you can't bet on that. So you have to kind of see where you want to finish and be in there. But it's fun to see these two up front going, back and forth, really working. It's interesting to see who really drives up the hill and who actually lets the momentum take you on the downhill. Guled, it seems like he likes to really stretch it out on the downhill, which I like. He had a phenomenal opener. He was 4th last Friday with the BYU guys. So, having the BYU guys with you in the race. They're always fighting for that national title, and he must have some confidence coming into this race.
But he also has some competition, as Murphy Smith of Navy has covered all of those moves and now runs up and alongside Guled here as they move into the back half of this 8K distance through 5,000 meters for those splits there, and the real-time updating of team scores as each of the schools finally get a fifth runner across, and that gives us a Wyoming squad with a 5-point advantage on Navy. Wyoming 4th, 7th, 8th, 18th, and 24th for their first 5 runners. Navy 2nd, and then 10, 11, 12. But Navy, Ben, who had their 2nd through 5th, all one after each other at that last split. I think it was 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now it's 10, 11, 12, and 31. So that 5th runner, 7 spots behind the Wyoming runner, and the difference right now between 1st and 2nd is just 5 points.
Yeah, and I think the big storyline here is a little bit of Minnesota. I think probably Sarah Hopkins said, hey, be patient. A lot of teams are going to go out hard. They're going to be lured in on the idea that it's still a nice, cool, calm day. It was 60 when we started the race. It's getting a little hotter as the minutes go on, but the course is ruthless. It's ruthless all the way to the finish. So does Minnesota kind of sit back and hope to have a good last half? And it looks like that's kind of what they're doing today. Their 5th place is 22nd, like you said. Navy's their 5th guy is 32nd. And if he starts falling back, maybe Minnesota pulls off a top 2.
Coming up on 18 minutes elapsed here in this Division I men's gold race at the 38th annual Roy Griak Invitational in Minnesota. Mohamed Guled of Utah Valley leading this race as he's broken away just a little bit now from Murphy Smith. Hunter Christopher of Youngstown State, the senior, came through 5K in 3rd, and now, as you can see him just coming over that rise, starting to see Smith fall back just a little bit, giving him a target to try to close the gap here in the latter stages.
Yeah, this race definitely isn't over yet.
And looking at that distance between Guled and Smith from high above, as the crowd gathers around, and that is the race within the race to carry the and you're going to be doing that a little bit later on. You've actually got a family member racing in the high school races. Do you plan to run between like 9 points on the course to cheer them on?
Oh, yes. The Highland girls know that, and guys know that I get around in the sense of running, and it is so much fun. I definitely make my way through, but I have to prepare myself. Like, I took an easy day yesterday because, as we can see, Guled's starting to climb again. Like, it is hard for spectators as well.
He did check his watch. Is that a little tell? He's like, man, these kilometers are taking a little bit longer than they used to.
I like watching him go on the descent, though. Sorry, Paul. I like watching him come down these races, or down the hills. It seems like he really opens up, and that's where he's gained a lot of distance in this race. You can see that he really lets that momentum. A lot of times we forget about that. You know, even on the soft downhills, you got to let that work for you. You cannot hold back on those downhills unless it's super steep, but you can see him really enjoying almost this longer stride, and he hasn't really taken a look back.
No, and right now it looks like out of sight, out of mind for first place. He gets over this little hill, gets around a turn, and sometimes when you can't see first, it seems a little bit hopeless.
You can kind of hide in cross country, and I love that. When you get out in front, if you can sort of get out far enough where you get out of their sight, well, then guess what? It gets out of their mind, and so they then start fighting for the next position. So he definitely can use these ups and downs to get away from them a little bit more.
Well, and he has gotten away from Murphy Smith here in these last kilometers. So you still see, I think, Murphy emerging from the tree line there, but as Guled makes a sweeping downhill run and getting through sort of the major last climbs of this race course, and now starting to think about getting himself back to the finish line. Been an impressive performance for himself, as we were talking about, and we'll keep an eye on how Minnesota finishes up as a team, but was very patient in the early going. Didn't mention him in those first few kilometers, Ben, but probably had a race plan in mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to go at a certain point, and when he did, no others could follow.
Yeah, he went. It is definitely an impressive performance, and like we saw the names in the beginning, you add your name to this list, and usually you're on to great things.
Tom Samuel of New Mexico State, winning last year, adding his name to a long line as the New Mexico athlete. Ran 23:36.4 last year, getting within 21 seconds of that incredible performance that Lauri Lang ran back in 2011 when he ran the course in 23:15.5. Another climb here for the leader, and now a big look back.
You can see a little grimace. That was a brutal hill at 22 minutes, but you're not far from the finish line now. And it's really, can he hold it together? No mistakes. Keeps picking up his feet and just keeps making these hills. It does look brutal, though.
Well, this is where the season will help him, right? He's got time to really work on these later stages. You know, we go from 8K to 10K at the NCAAs. So he has some more work to put in, but it's fun to see them go for it for as long as they can. You can see he's hurting a little bit, but he's put that work in from like 5 to 7K here. He's really hammered. So he should be tired.
And it looks like the race for second place is on right now.
Yeah, Murphy Smith, who was alone there in second, now has Hunter Christopher, we would assume, next to him, stride for stride, as Guled makes one of the final turns for home here, and we get dropped back onto that driving range, which is where they started this race almost 24 minutes ago. So keep an eye on that race for second. That has some bearing on the team race as well, as it's Murphy Smith of Navy as their lead runner. They were second overall in the standings coming through the 5-kilometer stretch. And Guled now trying to close this thing out. Another look at his watch. Now being embraced by the crowd. And we'll follow directions as that race now for second, third, and fourth getting quite interesting here as the crowd starts to embrace Mohamed Guled, the senior from Utah Valley. He is going to have enough of an edge on the rest of the field and will close out his victory, the first of 10 race victories we'll show you here over the course of this spectacular sunny Friday in Minnesota. And another one big look back by Mohamed Guled. He's going to celebrate as a shade under 25 minutes takes the victory here at the Roy Griak Invitational. 24:55. Lars Mitchell of Colorado State with a great close in second, followed by Hunter Christopher, Murphy Smith. There's Mason Norman and Carrick Danker. So Cal gets their first runner in Danker. Holtzen of Wyoming in seventh. And then Jacob White, Carson Noker, and Jackson Wynn of Navy. So Navy gets 2 across the line in the top 10, and now we watch that real-time scoring start to populate at the top, as you can see in the parentheses the number of runners that have come across the line. Navy now with its full team in at 71 points. Minnesota, they're in third unofficially. Few unattached athletes in this race, so those runners and their placings will be pulled out, and there may be a slight adjustment in the scoring here. But now we start to see the effects of this heat and this course. I'm struck, having not called this Roy Griak before, Carrie, that this course may be the sleeper pick all along. It really does test these guys, and on a day where the temperatures are climbing into the 70s is going to be a challenge for the next 9 race fields that go out on the course.
Yeah, it definitely is a tough course, and I do think the humidity is something that we do need to talk about. That's just something that athletes are, thinking it's fall now. We don't need to deal with it anymore. Well, they're dealing with it here in Minnesota right now. But a big shout out to Lars Mitchell. He was a guy that didn't know if he was going to come back and race again. He is now in grad school, and he came back to Colorado State and had a great race here. So great start to a season.
Well, as we watch the rest of the field get themselves to the line, covering this 8K distance at Roy Griak, and Wyoming still unofficially the winner with 63 points. A chance for us to check in with Keenan Gray, who has our winner from Utah Valley.
Thanks, Paul. Here with our champion from Utah Valley, Mo Guled. Obviously a dominant run. Feels good to come down to sea level too also after racing in Utah. Just tell us how we're really feeling just after this performance.
I'm so happy. I'm feeling good, but this course is so hard. But I want to win, so that's important.
Obviously, it kind of feels a little like running in the mountains in Utah a little bit. Kind of just take us through it. About 5K to go, or about 3K to go. You seem like you took that move away from Murphy Smith. What was that? Was that obviously the strategy going into this race?
Yeah. Because when you're coming from altitude to sea level, so maybe that's help you to keep going.
Yeah, obviously a solid start to the year. You got 4th at the Autumn Classic just this last week. Do we feel like there's big expectations for yourself in 2024?
Yeah, last year I'm injured, so I didn't competition any races. So this year I'm feeling good. So that's right.
Pretty good performance out there. Congratulations to Mo. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Keenan. As you know, there are advantages, right? I mean, the advantage to having already raced, an advantage to being able to train and race at altitude, and Mohamed Guled took advantage of both, and was not surprisingly mentioning very first out of the gate, Carrie, the conditions that he was racing under today.
Yeah, but I did like how he said, he's coming from altitude, so he was using that to his advantage. But, they don't have that humidity at altitude, and so there's just so many factors. Everyone has something to deal with, and, we say it time and time again, but when you get into a race, you're all dealing with the same conditions, and so, yeah, he had a great race. I think he's going to be proud of the tactics that he used today by pushing hard at about 3/4 to go and really seeing if he can open up. That battle between 2nd, 3rd, and even 4th was pretty hard, and they were trying to close in on him in the final 300 meters.
What struck you, Ben, about his race performance today?
I think he was bold, confident, went for it, and at that point he just didn't look back, and hope he made a run all the way to the finish.
So Mohamed Guled, the winner in 24:55. Lawil Lang's course record lives for another year, as Lars Mitchell, Hunter Christopher Murphy Smith, and Mason Norman constitute the top 5 here at the Roy Griak. And we look back at a stretch of racing here where Guled decided to break away from the rest of the field, and even with that one final big look back, he was in control and on his way to a Roy Griak Invitational victory. Wyoming takes the team title, holding off Navy 61-73, and the home team from Minnesota. Great performance for them as they wind up in 3rd. And there you see the results from this men's gold race, the Division I men out and covering this course in just a shade under 25 minutes. We'll move down to the 6K distance for the women. Coming up here is the Division I gold race will be coming up shortly, followed by 2 collegiate races to close out the collegiate portion of the Roy Griak Invitational, with Division II and Division III racing together in a combined classification race. The men also racing at 8K and the women racing the 6K. And then we'll transition to the high school races. 6 races scheduled for the afternoon portion of the session. They'll have the championship races to start, and then the maroon followed by the gold races. All the high school races today will be covering the distance of 5K. Stick around, much more coverage of the 38th annual Roy Griak Invitational when we return back with the women's Division I gold race after these messages.
Runnerspace